What's going on, Potomac third graders? Just a minute, I'm going to continue reading where Miss Mantle left off in Runaway Ralph by Beverly Cleary. But before we do that, a couple of things to get out of the way. First, our joke of the day. What did the big flower say to the little flower? Hi, bud. Next, I want to give a couple shout outs to a few people in my math class for getting on IXL, logging in, and working hard. Jack, Brianna, Kaylee, great job. In my reading class, I have a few people that have been getting on and doing their Raz Kids reading. So shout out to Sammy, Cadence, and Landon. Keep up the good work. Make sure you guys are still working hard. I know we're not at school, but it's important that you keep practicing those skills for next year. All right, I'm going to continue on where Miss Mantle left off in chapter 7. We have been given permission from the book's publisher, Scholastic. When Miss Mantle left off, Ralph was a little upset because Garf doesn't believe him. So we'll find out if he convinces Garf to believe him next. In a few moments, Aunt Jill returned, glanced at the shelf beside Ralph's cage, and frowned slightly as if she were puzzled about something. Ralph settled greedily at his food dish. I'll show that Garf, he thought, as he crammed seeds into his mouth with his paws. As soon as I get out of this cage, I'll show him. When Ralph's stomach was comfortably full, he took a long nap. By the time he woke, the craft shop was empty, the camp strangely quiet. A few chickens scratched under the walnut trees, and the kittens tumbled about trying to catch one another's tails. A horse whinnied in the pasture. But there was no one in sight. Where is everybody? Ralph asked Chum. They've all gone down to the river for a swim and a picnic supper, answered Chum. Peaceful, isn't it? I finally got some sleep in the daytime. In the distance, Sam barked and Camper shouted and laughed. Ralph felt so stodgy from overeating that he went for a run on his wheel before he scuttled around the edges of his cage. His search was futile. Garf had replaced the bottom and fastened the door securely. Suddenly the hair along Ralph's spine began to tingle. Catso! Ralph huddled in the corner of his cage and tried to make himself invisible. Catso squeezed through the hole in the screen and landed with a soft thud on the workbench beneath Ralph's cage. Ralph squeezed himself into a tighter ball. He felt as if the beat of his heart was as loud as the tick of the missing watch. Why couldn't Sam stay home and guard the camp the way he was supposed to? This time, there was no watch to distract Catso. Catso stood with his front paws on Ralph's shelf and sniffed the cage. Then he sat down and calmly began to wash. First his right ear, then his left ear. The suspense was more than Ralph could bear. Catso stretched out his left hind leg and began to groom his left hind foot. He licked with long, careful licks, combing his fur neatly toward his toes. Suddenly Ralph had an inspiration. He was about to take a terrible chance, but with no one to protect from his sneaky cat, he had nothing to lose. Anything was better than cringing in a corner, waiting for that beast to wash and comb every hair in his body. Ralph took charge. He left his corner, sprang on his wheel, and raced so fast he could loop the loop. That activity caught Catso's attention all right. The cat sat there, with his hind leg in the air, looking surprised. Ralph leaped from his wheel and faced Catso through his bars. The cat forgot about his grooming, and jumping to his feet, placed his front paws on the shelf and stared into Ralph's cage. Hiding his terror, Ralph stared back. If there's one thing I can't stand, it's a disrespectful mouse, said Catso, and with a swipe of his paw sent the cage flying. Ralph was prepared. He hung onto the bars and braced himself. Water splashed, and seeds flew. One corner of the cage struck the work table, jarring the bottom loose, exactly as Ralph had planned. The cage bounced and landed on its side. Ralph sprang out through what had once been the bottom. This accident was his chance. Catso pounced, but before his paws could land on Ralph, he was thrown off his aim by a sudden hissing sound from above. Startled, he missed Ralph's tail by the width of a whisker. Ralph was startled too, but the unexpected noise did not prevent him from scrambling behind a jar of nails on the work table. When Ralph got up the courage to peek around the jar of nails, he saw Catso staring up at Chum's cage. He heard the hissing sound again, and knew that it must be coming from Chum. Good old Chum. Ralph hadn't known that a hamster knew how to hiss. When Catso recovered from his surprise, he was after Ralph, who dashed from behind the nails as the jar was sent rolling across the table. Crash! It landed on the floor and broke, scattering nails across the craft shop. Ralph leaped. Oh, there's a picture of it. Making a hot mess. Ralph leaped behind the supplies of beans and peas and hamster food with Catso after him. Jars crashed, bags tumbled and split as they fell. Crash, bang, smash. Noise and flying glass did not stop Catso. Ralph leaped behind the big spools of lanyard plastic. Catso knocked over the spools, and the plastic unreeled, tangling about his feet. While Catso freed himself from the plastic, Ralph found behind the work table a slanting piece of wood that was a brace between the studs of the rough walls of the craft shop. Ralph ran down the brace as Catso tried to squeeze his head between the edge of the work table and the wall. He could get his head in the space, but not the rest of his body. He pulled back his head and tried to reach Ralph with his paw. Ralph, however, was too far down the brace. Next, Catso leaped to the floor and ran under the table. Ralph scurried up the brace so that he was above the table and beyond Catso's reaching paw. Back to the tabletop went Catso, and down the brace ran Ralph, once again beyond the stretch of those curved and groping claws. Frantic with frustration, the cat sprang from the table while Ralph ran up the brace. Once more, Catso reached and stretched and groped. Ralph's courage and confidence had returned. He advanced within half an inch of Catso's longest reach. Catso tried, but could stretch his foreleg no farther. Ralph sat down and said, "This could go on all day. You might as well give up. You know I'm too smart for you." Catso, after one more effort to stretch farther, withdrew his paw, came out from under the table, and picked his way daintily and disdainfully through the jumble of seeds, nails, and plastic cord, as if the mess was beneath his notice. He held his tail proudly erect, but he did not fool Ralph. The cat had been defeated. Catso squeezed out the hole in the screen door. Ralph was safe. Safe and free. Now all he had to do was figure out how to get his motorcycle away from Garth, and he'd be on his way back to the Mountain View Inn. In the meantime, he settled down to feast on all the seeds that Catso had spilled for him. That's the end of the chapter. So chapter 8 is called Ralph Strikes a Bargain. Bargain means a deal. All right. So, in this chapter, Ralph is telling the truth, but Garth doesn't believe him. And maybe for good reason. So I want you, and for your optional writing assignment, to think of a time when you were telling the truth to somebody, but they didn't believe you. And how did that make you feel? So think of a time you were telling the truth to somebody, could be a friend, a parent, a sibling, and for some reason, they didn't believe you. And then how did it make you feel? If you can't think of a time, maybe there's a time you didn't believe a friend or a family member about something they were telling you, and then you found it out to be true. How do you think it made them feel? All right. Miss Jones will continue with the next chapter tomorrow. I hope everyone is staying safe, and until next time.